Hey, welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today I have with me Ann Pruitt. Now, Ann Pruitt is actually dialing in from Anchorage, Alaska.
I
Now,
am.
yeah. So now a little bit about, if you don't know where Alaska is, it's right next to Russia. Okay.
Yes, it is.
It's just across the Bering Strait. But don't worry about that. She's safe at the moment, we believe. So look, a little bit about Ann. She is the CEO and president of Mosaic Media, a collection of media buying experts and creative strategists who negotiate, purchase, and monitor advertising space and airtime. She's here today to share some marketing wisdom gleaned from her extensive career in media strategy. And by the way, we only bring wise people on the show. Mm-hmm. And she's got this marketing wisdom gleaned from her extensive career in media strategy and how it relates to the ever-evolving climate of media. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me on. I'm excited for the conversation.
So, Ann, my opening question is, and a lot of entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs, I'm always curious about what got you into media and advertising. So, where did this come from? Were you at college, had a few drinks one night, someone said, go and do advertising, media, and start a company, or how else did it happen? So tell me.
I think I always had a love for marketing as a whole. And really it's fascinating. I mean, I started as a graphic designer before the digital age. So you're actually drawing and you're actually having to roll film and use film and having to use things in design, totally different. And then being able to actually scan in a picture and digitizing it and using it in that sense. So I actually started on the design side. But when I got into college, I fell in love with marketing and economics together. And that was where I started to fall in love with numbers and seeing data and data telling us a story. Where I got into media, it is funny, a random friend who said, hey, he worked in TV and he goes, hey, this job would be great for you. And we were at dinner with friends and he said, this job would be perfect for you. And I was like, why not? So that's where I started my TV career. And that's when I started my media career. And from there, I fell in love with media. I fell in love with overall everything that went with it, but the data. And once I realized all this economic study that I had done and the marketing together, all of these things, that's what media is now, especially today. It is a lot of data sets that we are studying and analyzing, and data always tells us a story. So really, I guess my true love for media really came from my love for data.
Wow. Okay. So welcome to the world of enormous data in 2022.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you nearly didn't make it into the studio to record this today because you've got a snowstorm happening.
Yes, we are having quite the snowstorm in Anchorage. Yes.
Yeah. So like in Australia, we talk about snow in inches. In Alaska, they talk about it in feet. So I think
in days like today, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So I'm very thankful that you basically dived through the storm and came up here despite that. And you had a snowmobile, you had a snowplow, and just following in front of you to get through here. So I'm really...
My SUV really worked well. But yes, getting here was, it's always a challenge, right? You never know. But leave it to the imagination a little bit. Just think about it. Me shoveling my whole way here. Why not?
Well, don't ruin a good story with the truth. Come on.
Okay. I'll work on it.
Okay. So you started getting involved with the media. So where was your first gig? Did you start the company? Did you go work for someone?
Yeah, no. So when I started the agency, that was my first agency work I had ever done. I had never done anything outside of my own, but I worked for some of the large corporations in media for a while before then, on the placement and on the ad side. And that's where, I really fell in love with ads. I fell in love with ad placement, paid media. And then went from there of, I think there's a lot more that I can bring to the table with this, and decided to go out and start an agency. And with that, you learn so many things when you go out on your own. It is first, you learn how strong you are and the decisions that you have to make to be able to go out on your own. But then you also, you learn everything from running a business. It's not just I can do the advertising side really well. Okay, but can I do the business side really well? And that's the part that's probably my favorite part that I've learned over the last 11 years is the part of what I've learned on the business side. And I love that part of the job. That's my favorite part of the job.
Right. So essentially becoming an entrepreneur is actually a lesson in personal growth.
It is, absolutely. And, and a key thing with that is I think entrepreneurs were naturally that way. And we've always had a mindset of being entrepreneurial. And we talk ourselves out of it a lot until we finally take that leap of faith. It's scary to get out. And now I think in today's world, it's not as scary as it was. But it's a little easier to be an entrepreneur. I look at generationally speaking, our younger generations now, are more excited to think about starting businesses, or more into that a little bit more. And they have that faith a little bit younger than we did. But I was able, when you do it, it is a lesson in everything that you as that self, who am I made of? What am I able to do? What decisions can I make digging deep in there? And entrepreneurs, we've always had that instinct of starting businesses, of seeing how things can operate and see how we love to learn. We love to do things different. We don't like to get bored. Yep. I genuinely think that entrepreneurs are a unique breed.
I think they are. And I think the other thing that's not given enough credit for is the creativity that's behind becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter what kind of entrepreneurial venture you're going into, you have to be creative in multiple ways. You have to be able to think, you have to solve problems on the regular, and you have to find solutions to those problems. I often like to say I'm a solutions finder, not a problem solver. Right. I'm a solution finder. We're going to find that solution. We're going to figure out how it's going to work. We're going to make it happen. No is not an answer I like to take. And it's okay, let's get this done. Let's figure out how that is going to be. And I think most entrepreneurs have that natural instinct internally to be able to solve those problems, and to be able to have those solution seeking skills.
Yeah. And the other thing about an entrepreneur is they take an idea and then they create something.
Yes, absolutely.
It might be a product or a service. And my latest favorite quote is from Seth Godin. He says, "It doesn't count until you share."
Yep. Oh, and in today's world, I feel that so many people are scared of sharing those things and scared of stepping out into it. And I'm a big believer in collaboration and in partnership, and how do you work, companies working together and partnering together, as opposed to just seeing everybody as your competition, or just as opposed to seeing everybody as a challenge to you. How can we all collaborate together? And I believe that's that next layer of sharing that we as entrepreneurs should do.
I totally agree. I think there's much more power in collaboration and working together to, it raises all boats. And I think that the competition's overrated, frankly. And
100%.
And we quite often get lost in competition, forgetting that to just be you and create a product that becomes compelling and has your voice around it, because then it becomes authentic and true. Now, I want to go back to the future, as in I want to go back to when you got into media and put a timestamp on that, because that will give us some relevance in terms of what we're going to talk about shortly, which is trends. Yes. So, and how the pandemic has changed almost everything, sort of.
Yep.
So when did you get into media and advertising?
So when I got into marketing, it was the late 90s. Really getting into media was early 2000s. So when I got into media, we're talking TV, radio, print, and outdoor, and traditional platforms. Print was huge still. Print was something that was a big, like everybody still got their daily newspaper. Yep. And, it's that type of consumption of media. And oh my word, over 20 years later, how it's changed, how it has evolved. It's been quite the journey to see how everything has shifted and changed.
I know. So today's millennials and those who may be younger than 40 wouldn't even ever read a newspaper on a piece of paper, as in paper newspaper.
Well, and what's interesting that we saw during the pandemic was we did see traditional formats make a comeback, and more of the consumption of news and information, right? And so we saw younger generations consuming news, which they weren't before. They were not really actually consuming news, but they changed how they were consuming news. So they're changing it where they're not reading the physical newspaper. They are making sure they're paying attention more online, and they're paying attention to their more local news than they ever had before, because they really wanted to know what was happening in their backyard. They wanted to know what local counts were going to be, what local guidelines were. And so we saw this consumption of younger behavior, and we saw it come back with radio too with that. So we saw, TV news, print news, it was just consumed in a different way, in a different format.
Yeah. Something that slightly disturbs me is, and it was raised quite a few years ago, because I was asked how many, we all get a lot of, how many people are actually consuming news or getting their news from social media?
Right.
And I went, and I'm a little bit older than a millennial, okay, and it's like, okay, so almost all the millennials and everyone, under 40, whatever, are consuming their news from social media. And I'm going, that's really bloody scary. It is so scary, because that just drives cognitive bias up. It just puts you in a bubble, and you just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And then you are an absolute target for any, basically schemes. It's just really, really scary. What do you think about that?
Well, in today's world, we can target based on your interest. So we can target things based on what you're interested in hearing. We can target, whether that be the news, whether that be the ad sets, we're able to target. Now, social has changed over the last couple of years, more than anything, with regulations and various things of ad spend. And frankly, I don't like to use social as a targeting tool like we used to be able to, because of the changes that in Facebook specifically. LinkedIn, you can still do a lot of targeting. Twitter, there's still some targeting there too. But Facebook now is more of a brand tool as opposed to a targeting tool. We're not able to target at the same level as we used to be able to. But that's when you should be looking at programmatic and targeting programmatically, which is just a bidding process based on the persona and the individual that you're trying to target. But yes, you're absolutely right that in today's world, we're able to target information more than we ever have been. And so on the ad spend side, and when you're looking at it as a brand, that's a huge opportunity that we've never been able to do. And this is something this is new technology, and it's changing every day. And it's something for us, like our team is literally every day. I told a new client yesterday, I said, well, we're going to send over all the capabilities of what we're able to do. However, know that this changes every day. We're able to add new things every day, because programmatically you're able to add new things. But it makes it scary are there those that maybe are abusing that power to be able to target? It's possible, for sure.
Well, I think it's the bad actors that are using that.
I like to say that the majority of people are the good people, right?
Yep.
And there's always the bad actors that spoil it for everyone. But it is such a tool that can be used in such a positive way and to make such a positive difference. And we really, all of us as marketers and all of us as advertisers and brands, should be looking at it in that manner, as opposed to using it in that other targeting light.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I was incredibly positive about social media when I started my blog in 2009, which was basically me starting to write very badly, because I hadn't really written much since I'd left university. So, look, I'd written, but write.
I know, I understand.
But back then it was like social media was just this wild west. It was, the algorithms actually hadn't even been invented then.
Right.
2013, 14, Facebook started bringing in algorithms because it went public, and it removed almost overnight, well, over a little while, people's ability to reach their audience they'd built, such as their followers.
Yep.
So it's been a really interesting journey for me in the last 13 years. to observe the media landscape, social media landscape, the digital marketing landscape, the online entrepreneur landscape, which is where I'm leaning more into these days. So before we dive into, because I'm really curious about how the pandemic's changed marketing, advertising, media, and maybe even life. We can get into something interesting called life. And so, but before we do that, I don't understand programmatic advertising. So I am now putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Going, okay, Marianne, tell me what programmatic advertising is. Okay.
And you're not the only one. It has been I would say that this is the Wild West of today, and this is where people are headed. And they've been there. If you're not on the programmatic bandwagon yet, you should be looking at it. Find a good partner in it. I preach all day long, a vendor versus a partner, and find a good partner. There are companies like ours that partner with you, that know how to use it well. Take the mystery out of it for you, because that's the biggest thing. There's a lot of mystery about it because it's new and it's different. And frankly, I think people do that on purpose so that they can make it easier for you to buy onto it. But in reality, find a good partner that can help you, because it is very specialized. So programmatic advertising is just an automated form of ad placement. That's all it is. And I like to bring it down to the most simple line possible. Okay. In history, before programmatic, anytime we would buy any media, it would go through an RFP process, or it'd go through a process where I'd reach a rep and I'd find out, okay, what can I do? What is going to be the price? What's my rate card? What's the information I need to? I put my spots and I put all my goals in a plan, and I put it together and I send in an order. Now, what programmatic does is it makes it automated. And if you think of it in that sense, so before, I would actually go to a website, or I'd go to a public, let's say it's the Wall Street Journal. I would go to the Wall Street Journal and I'd get, what's the rate card to be online? What's the rate card to be in the publication? What's the rate card of where we need to be? Now, I can go and I can programmatically bid and automate that to bid to be on that website, based on the individual and the persona in which I'm targeting.
Wow.
So
okay.
if I'm targeting a business person, I'm talking a C-suite, executive level, financial, I get as deep as I possibly can. I can see then, okay, the data sets of where are they going to be? They're going to be on the Wall Street Journal. Now it's an automated bidding process, as opposed to me having to pick up the phone and having to call a rep and get a rate card. Okay. I did that process and I'm there. But I'm not wasting dollars, in the sense that I know where my audience is based on data sets that we have, right? And that's the other part. Programmatic brings in all the artificial intelligence, and it brings in that bidding process, and it makes it this part where I'm looking at targeting a persona in an individual, not just a demographic, but an individual based on the certain habits that they have. And I'm reaching them where they are. And that's and I'm bidding it in that process. So before, when I first started in media was a demographic. What is your demographic? Oh, it's 18 to 54, adults 18 to 54 years old. I'm not going to reach the 18-year-old the same way I am the 54-year-old.
No.
And the fact that we ever thought we were, but that's where we went broad. We went very broad because that's the only way we could measure media. We used to only measure media by diaries, literally physical diaries that still exist today, that we would fill out, where are people consuming media? That is it. Now we know where people are consuming media because they get online and we have all this data available to us to know where they are. And so it's different now. Now it's, who is my ideal customer? And then where am I targeting to find them? And it's building a persona of that ideal customer, as opposed to just a broad demographic that I'm going after.
Right. Okay. So that makes a lot more sense to me then, because programmatic was problematic because I didn't understand it.
Yeah. Well, and think of it this way. The websites put up an impression up for bid, and I'm, it's putting it out for auction. I'm bidding on it and I'm getting that impression. So I'm buying the impression, as opposed to having to call a rep. What's the rate card? Okay. Yeah, I'll be on the homepage. That works great. Here you go.
So with something like Facebook advertising, and the thing about digital media is it's become so splintered. So you almost like, you can only be a specialist in one platform almost, right? like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google. It just goes on and on and on. So with programmatic, do you need to use, obviously need to use a platform that is connected to all the media, or as much media as possible. So what are some of the programmatic media platforms that you use, or is that a black box or secret women's business or something? I don't know, but tell us about that.
It is called a DSP, which is a demand side platform. And what you want is a partner that has a direct seat on a DSP, because you can get vendors that we hear TV vendors, we hear other vendors out there that are using a DSP, but they're like 3 or 4 layers separated, maybe even 2 or 3 layers separated. So you're not getting that hands-on direct seat of bidding. And it costs a lot. And there are minimums to be a seat and to be a direct seat.
So DSP again, tell me what that is.
It's a demand side platform.
Demand side.
Side. SIDE.
Demand side platform. Okay.
Yep. And you're using that is what you're bidding on, and you want somebody who has a direct seat. There are multiple DSPs out there, and each of them serve something different and how they do it. But there's a lot of great tools out there. But what it takes is, if you are going to actually be a direct seat, that takes a lot of investment on your part. So if you're a small brand, you can go to a vendor and you can get the programmatic bidding. You're not going to get as much spend. You're not going to get the best quality CPM necessarily. You're not going to get somebody who's looking and optimizing everything on the regular. You're going to get more of a set it and forget it type of mentality. But if you find a partner that has that direct seat, and more and more I'm educating brands on, find a partner that has a direct seat on a DSP. Ask those things. Ask those things of, are you a direct seat? And that will help with multiple ways for you when you are trying to bid your ad spend, but work with them on it. Like you're giving a budget, you're looking at who you're targeting. That person's a direct seat, and they're able to then optimize, bid, do everything on your behalf if they are a true partner for you.
Right. So that sounds very complex.
It is. I mean, it's a big investment. We got into it very early. And it was something that, okay, this is a concentration. This is where we're going to go. And it's a large investment to do. It's an entrepreneurial leap of faith of, can we do this? Mm-hmm. And you do it. And when you do it, it really does make that difference. But the good news is, for brands that can't afford to put millions into it, what do? You find that partner that has invested in it. Our business model is to work with people who don't have the money to invest millions of dollars into putting that together. So how do you? Okay.
So someone wants to do that programmatic. You're basically, have you got a direct seat? Is that how it works?
Yep.
Okay. And you then
you come to a partner like us, that, like our company, that would then help you if you don't have the millions to spend. So you come to us with our volume, and we help you. Then we just bid on your behalf. We do that for you. We help you. We come up with the strategy for you. You no longer have to be the expert in it anymore. You find that true digital partner to help you in it.
Okay. So that begs another question too. So why use programmatic advertising instead of just, okay, we've got skills in house, we can do Facebook advertising, right? Why should I go and do programmatic advertising versus Facebook advertising?
So Facebook is very brand driven, and programmatic, you're gaining a wider audience with narrowing your audience down. You're narrowing who you actually are trying to target. Right. You can get as narrow as you possibly want. It's easier to test your ad buys. It's easier to see, and Facebook and social media absolutely have its place. We do that too. We do the social platforms. We have traditional experts. We have social experts. We have Google experts. And then we have our programmatic team as well. So we do all of those, and every single one of them has a role. And it's a matter of what your goal is. If you are looking at overall brand recognition, now that's when you're using Facebook, and you're not necessarily looking at targeting. Programmatic is a targeting tool where you want to target the individual in which you want to serve your ad to. Okay. This is you know your audience really well. I do speak all the time of know your audience and then get to know them a little bit more. And why? Because that's how we target in today's world. If when I started my career over 20 years ago, if we would have been able to have this capability of targeting, it's amazing what we could have been able to do, right? And now I look at it and think, okay, it's right here in our fingertips, and not enough people take advantage of it. They know about it. They know you can target, but you're not keeping up on the trends. Again, another reason why you want a good partner, the partners are usually staying up on trends. We are every day doing our research of where do we use Facebook and social, and where do we use programmatic? Where are the goals with it? Because both of them all have their place and they have their strengths. We just have to use them to their strengths.
Yep. That's awesome. So now, if I'm going to launch a new product, all right, we have got the ability to capture data. So what I'm going to start with on this question, where I'm going with this question is, if I'm going to launch a product, I need to go and test the messaging. I need to test headlines. I need to test the sales funnel. So with programmatic and what you guys do, how do you go about that? Like, in other words, you want to go and do a low-cost test, and I want to maybe get 5 to 7% click-through on an ad. Okay, you don't want 1 or 2, maybe 5 to 7. If you get above that, it's looking good. And I'll be interested in what you think is a good click-through rate based upon test. So how do you go about testing? That's one question. And what's a good click-through rate? And there's a third question, which is what sort of budget do you need? Because if you're I'm sure I don't know what you're talking, but what budget do you need to test without breaking the bank? All right. Because, okay. So once you find what works and what doesn't, and marketing today is just an ongoing evolution and growth of tweaking, getting another 1%, another 2%, because there's a data now to measure all that. So tell us a little bit about, I've listed 3 questions. You may have forgotten the first one. I think I have.
And the answer to all of them is it depends. And I know that right. So, but when you are looking, so if you're doing testing, programmatic, you can do in social and programmatic, you're able to do A/B testing, and you're able to look at different ad sets and testing.
Yep.
Click-through rates, it depends on what your goal is going to be, right? And it's going to vary because maybe you are doing more impression-based as opposed to click-based. And overall, you have to take a step back and say, okay, what is my goal of the campaign? Where am I going with this? What are my KPIs that I'm actually looking for? I want to know what my performance indicators are ahead of time. Define those ahead of time so that you can look at it and go, okay, if my goal is clicks, then I'm going to want to push for a higher click-through rate. If my goal is impressions, I'm going to want to push for a higher impression. So when you're looking at a strategy of a new brand launch, there's a few things. There's testing you can do before you launch your brand, right? So you're going to want to actually look at that and test the market, test your audience of, okay, I'm about to do a new brand launch. There's tons of research that you have to put into that, whether it's social listening, whether it's A/B testing. It could be a total brand change as a whole, that you're changing a name, you're changing, who knows? And that is something that has to be tested ahead of time. And you're more getting a sampling of what the market feels, what the market is thinking about the current brand, what the market is thinking and hungry maybe for a new line out of that current brand, or a new change as a whole. So you got your testing that you can do ahead of time. And then you've got your testing that you can do once you do launch too. And that's more on the performance on each ad set. What creative is going to work better? What creative is getting what our key performance indicators are? What are those KPIs? What ads are performing best to those? Am I getting more clicks out of ad set A? Or am I getting more clicks out of ad set B, if that's what my goal is? And that's what I have to actually look at, is look at the whole, what am I looking for? What is the goal of the campaign? And then test it for that. So I'm testing, if it's a new brand launch, you're testing ahead of time. You have to test ahead of time to kind of get an idea of what the market is even hungry for. And then when you go into market and, okay, we see that the market is hungry for this X, and we're going down it, and we're going down that path. okay, now I'm going to test that ad set to see exactly to get what I need. If it's an e-commerce launch and I need sales through the roof and I'm having to look, okay, right out of the gate, I need to increase sales and I have a ton of inventory that I'm going to have to get rid of, then I'm going to be looking at click-through rate, because that's going to get me straight into sales funnel, right? That's going to get me straight into there, and I'm going to see where I need to go and that acquisition line. So that's where I want to look at. If it's just, hey, I'm launching this, I'm trying to get hype, I'm trying to get brand recognition, I'm trying to get the name out there, I don't have a ton of inventory yet, then I'm going to look at a goal of impressions as opposed to clicks, because I want the name out there as much as possible. I want to get my audience to see this new name. So really, the answer to all three is it depends. It depends on what you're looking for in that goal. But when it comes to budget, testing is not as expensive as you would think. You're going to want to have a few $1,000s that you're going to put into it. If you're a smaller brand, don't go, you know what, programmatic's not for me. Social's not for me. Because a lot of times people have gone to social because it is a more affordable platform. Programmatic can be affordable as well. It depends on where you're targeting. You cannot target Times Square with $1,000, nor should you want to.
No.
But there are places that and things that you can target, and you can look, okay, this is what I want to make sure that I'm doing. This is the geo that I want to target. This is the demographic that I want to target and the persona that I want to target. And I can test my brand with this persona, and it doesn't have to be an astronomical $1 million budget. It does not always have to be that. And I think, a lot of times brands walk away and they go, you know what, I just can't afford all this digital. I just can't afford it. Well, really, there's always a form of budget that you can't afford. You just have to look and see, okay, what are my goals with this? And I may not bite off a huge chunk of the apple at once. I'm going to nibble that apple as much as I can.
Yeah. So bigger brands of launching a new product are going to be happier with impressions because they're got a bucket load of money, right?
Yep.
Well, small and medium businesses are going to make every penny count, right?
And they're going to care about every penny. But that's why programmatic is an option for anyone of any size, of any company of any size. And there's always a media option for you. And that is the amazing thing in today's world, is that now we have all of these tools that if you have any form of brand, you should be looking at paid media. We have all of these tools available to us now. Where, like I said, when I started, we were limited, and you had to spend so much money to get your frequency up so people would even know who you were, so that your ad spend wasn't completely ruined or wasted. Right. And now in today's world, it can all work together, and you can come up with budget friendly options.
So what's great about measuring advertising with the data we now have, rather than the bullshit TV advertising which we had, right?
Yes. But I remember starting in my career, and there was a sales manager on our floor, and a customer had asked him, well, how do I know it's working? And he goes, because your cash register is ringing. And I will never forget that. And it was always like, oh, I just want to vomit. Like that's
right, exactly.
Right? Like it just feels like car salesman like, and not that there's anything wrong with car sales. I'm just saying it just felt schmarmy. And with that,
be very, very, very afraid of a man in a suit. Yeah, exactly.
It just feels, yeah. And, it's the kind of conversation where you're like, I'm done. I'm good. Okay, thanks. But in reality, what you do want to look now in today's world, we have so many tracking tools that we can use. We can tell what people are doing on the website now. We can track what sites are they on, what pages are they on, what are they doing while they're there, how long they were there, what are they reading the most. I mean, we have so many tools now, and that data tells us a story. I'm going to go back to where the beginning of this interview started, of my love for data. Data tells a story of where people are headed and where people are saying. If you start to see multiple numbers of people hanging out on a certain page on your website longer than any other page, that's telling you a story. That is telling you something there, that there's an action that can be taken there. There's something else that can be done. So the amazing thing in today's world is that we're all being tracked. The scary thing is we're all being tracked. But at the same time, let's use that as marketers to our advantage to be able to get the information that we want on our customers, and to be able to then make our brands even better, to serve them even better.
Exactly. So we're talking about data.
Mm-hmm.
So let's lean into dashboards, data dashboards. Okay. Because you've got all this data and you've got to try and get it from here, there, over there. And it's confusing. Okay. So, all right. So number one, I've got impressions. I've got clicks. I now have leads. Now I have sales. I'm just breaking it down to the most basic, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we need to know where that data is coming from. In other words, is paid working or is referral working? I have a website that gets millions of views a year, and I find that drives a lot of referral traffic for free, earned by time and investment by creating content, versus advertising, which, and the other thing about referral traffic coming from a trusted source, which is your website, versus paid, which is cold traffic. So we have warm traffic's from your list, it's from your website where people hopefully know and trust you. Advertising is no one knows who the hell you are, right? It's cold traffic, right?
Well, unless you're using your data in a good way and you're collecting data and retargeting. And if someone's coming in from the warm side and it's because of all the content and the amazing things that you're developing on your site, you need to be then retargeting them afterwards.
Exactly.
Right? So it is, if we're going to talk data, let's talk about first party data. Let's talk about what it is for you to own data on your customer now and to collect that information. As they are coming to your website from either a warm source or a cold source, either way, you should be then retargeting them. They are clicking there to go to your website for a reason. And that is then data, and it's prime. They're right there. And you don't want to scare them off. You want to make sure that you're nurturing that relationship, right? So you have to give them friendly reminders in it. You have to make sure that they know where you are. And but through the warm source of it, they are there, retarget them. It's okay to retarget them after.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
That's then where you can make the hot lead coming in from content that you've developed with the cold lead of ads. That's where it's going to make it nice and warm, and it's going to work. You're going to work them together. Those ad sides of, okay, I'm going to retarget now. That's an ad set. That's fine. And that's paid media. But you need to do those things and those tools to use those data to actually help you overall in your brand and what you're trying to accomplish.
So you bring paid media in, you bring referral traffic in, warm traffic.
It all works together. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So basically by bringing cold traffic in, they start to get a little bit hot and bothered, as in warm. Nicely hot and bothered, it's like dating, really. So so the reality is they both work together. I know that's what I've heard in some of your dispatches. So let's talk data dashboards then. So do you help people create those? Do you provide resources or tell them where to go to do that? Because at the end of the day, we've got so much data, but it needs to be distilled. Otherwise, it's just confusing.
It can be very confusing. And that is probably, raw data is very overwhelming and confusing.
It is.
Again, to me, and this is something that I just advise all the time, is finding that partner that can help you with it. So the tools that we use, we actually have a dashboard that we use and that we customize for each customer. So each brand that comes to us, whether it's an agency, we work with a lot with ad agencies to be their media department, or if you are a brand direct and you're an in-house marketing team and we work with you, we'll develop that dashboard. And it's going to change based on what the goals of each campaign and the goals of each client. So like an agency that comes to us with dozens of clients, we're going to have a different dashboard for each client. We're going to have a different setup for it, right? But you're going to pull in the information that's going to be the most important, because you're right.
Exactly.
Trying to process data can be so overwhelming. And so, okay, what is this telling me? And it's then the interpretation of it. So we like to help with that interpretation. That is something that on our end, we do a lot of, okay, what does this mean?
Yep.
Now it's the next step. And that is where it's so important to find that partner, not just that vendor that's giving you the service that, they can do it, but finding a partner that then helps you in that interpretation to make your investment. Every dollar you spend in ad sets or doing anything in paid space is an investment, and you want to get a return on that investment. So you want to make sure that you have a partner that is helping you get every piece back into that of how, okay, what does this mean? How do I interpret this data? So I'm not overwhelmed by it. And okay, because I could be overwhelmed by so many different things that it's telling me. I have no idea. I have seen people who don't have a partner go, I have no idea what this means. I have no idea what any of it means. I have no idea what this, how, okay, my ad performed well. What does that mean? And how do I interpret it from there? So it is really important to find those partners and find people to work with on that front that can actually help you interpret your own data.
So did you build your own dashboard technology, as in?
It's kind of a combination of both. We went through a long journey of finding, okay, what's going to be the best. And yes, then we went through and we created, we found a partner ourselves that then helped us develop it. And then that's what we did. And it's an investment in it, but that's what we do. Is we're data people, and we're working in all media space. And what we needed was a dashboard that can pull in all your media and tell you exactly, based on all metrics, what are we meeting and what are we not.
Yep. And I don't think I can stress enough how important a data dashboard is as an online company. And guess what? Almost everyone now is an online data company, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. And we all have data that we need to be tracking. We all do.
Exactly. So we've got to understand programmatic advertising a lot more, which is great. We talked about data, which is important. We need testing, which is really, really important, because everyone says, oh, I've got a great idea. It's going to work.
Test it out. You have to, because we all may think it's a great idea. The marketplace may not be ready for it, or the marketplace may not want it, or you never know. The other part of it too, on that end of testing, who are your competitors, and go do the research on it. Those are other research tools. When you find a good partner, for us, we do analysis of your competitive spend. What are your competitors spending? How many competitors do you have out there that are bidding for that same ad space, but also for those same dollars to be spent? Yep. That's also a big part of your testing.
Yep. Yeah. I love the quote by Mike Tyson about, everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face. And that applies totally also to a product. It's like, I have a great product, but the market's going to punch you in the face.
The market can be a real rude reminder of reality sometimes.
That's right. Yep. So you've created your own agency, which does, really, really clever, well thought out, digital, programmatic, and traditional. And programmatic does also use traditional. Is that correct?
Absolutely. More and more. So if we talk about trends of where it's headed, programmatic will be heavy in traditional, and that's where we're going eventually, where you will be going into a bidding process for the traditional platforms as well.
Right. So what you're saying is programmatic is much better at targeting than Facebook.
It's become a better targeting tool than Facebook, because Facebook, with privacies and everything, changed. Facebook used to be phenomenal at targeting
until Apple hit them in the face.
Yep. And that's exactly the point, right? At any point, the market will hit you in the face, and that's exactly what happened. Where it changed them significantly. It is still a very, very good platform. It is still a strong platform for your ad sales, but you need to use it for its strength. You're not using it for targeting anymore.
Right. Because Apple decided to stop providing through privacy, opt-in, opt-out.
Yep.
And I believe the numbers I've heard is that the bottom line impact on Facebook by privacy implementation from Apple's iOS 12.3, it might have been, I'm not sure, hit Facebook's advertising spend by $10 billion.
Yep. And it is like I said, you still use it for its strengths. Use it for its strengths. And it's just not the targeting tool that it used to be. It's just not. Exactly.
And this is what's fascinating about the trend. So, okay, so last question, because I realize you've got to get home before the snowstorm of 2 feet of snow turns up. Yeah, so the pandemic has accelerated change.
Yes.
Remote work was just one thing. How we live is part of that. So how's the pandemic changed the advertising industry and where you're playing?
Well, that could be a whole hour interview by itself. So I'll give a few quick synopsis of it, because it really is, it's one of those things now that I speak on the most, is probably the generational breakout of what we saw in consumption habits change. So really, truly, what we saw right out of the gate is a huge evolution of social and online platforms for our older generations. This was an evolution that probably either wouldn't have taken place in their lives, or it would have taken a good 10 to 15 years, depending on what age group. So we're talking baby boomers and older, that overnight, they were already kind of online, they were already doing some social media, but literally overnight, they became huge consumers of online data and online information. That's when we saw them starting to stream. This was a generation that was still traditional on their television. They were not streaming yet. We saw them starting to stream. We started seeing them consume media in a different format. So that is a habit that was created. On the other spectrum and the other end of this, we saw the younger generations, and I hinted at this earlier, the younger generation starting to consume media that was traditional, but yet on an online platform.
Yeah.
So we started to see these younger generations where they were actually tuning into radio, and they were listening to radio. They were listening to things that, because they wanted to know what was happening in their backyard. We see this when huge events happen and catastrophic events happen, we see habits change. 9/11 in the US, we saw morning news actually increase significantly. And why do we see morning news increase significantly? Was because consumers wanted to know, the world that I went to bed to, is it the same world that I'm waking up to?
Wow.
So we saw this huge increase in morning news. Now, in the pandemic, fast forward, the big difference in the pandemic is it lasted so long, and it's lasted so long, that our habits they have become rock solid concrete. These are true, genuine, long-term habits now that we are having, and we are seeing long-term change in that consumption behavior. You're talking about, you're talking remote work, you're talking online consumption at an all-time high that we got used to every day. We overconsume information when we're in a form of panic. That's what humans do. We overconsume information. We overconsumed information for so long, we've never stopped. We're at this high level of consumption of media, of information, of data. We're at this high level, and we haven't brought it back down, meaning our minds and our brains are still used to this. And because we consumed it for so long like that, we're used to that dopamine high of being online all the time. So what we're seeing is an overconsumption is now becoming the new norm. So these changes in these habits are that people are consuming media, of course, at an all-time high, but now it actually allows for targeting to be better, for the information that we have on individuals to be stronger, everything to be used in a positive light, in a positive way for brands. But humans as a whole worldwide are consuming more information than they ever have before. And we have to find that strategy of how to do it and correctly target them with it.
Right. So what you're saying,
it could be a whole hour episode just on this.
Okay. So let me sum it up in a very simple way, as much as I possibly can. So media consumption has gone through the roof.
Yes.
So now we're going to work out how to use that media consumption to actually break through the noise, because there's actually more noise now.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's exactly right. So if you aren't using targeting tools to break through the noise, if you aren't using certain ways of getting to know who your actual consumer is of your product, you need to invest in that. And I'm not saying invest millions. I'm saying invest into that to get to know your customer better, but then get to know how to target them better. And that's a really important place, because right now you have to break through the noise more than you ever have.
Yep. And you could talk to the people that you don't want everyone. You just want those that actually
your customer.
You want your customer. In other words, if you piss a few people off on the way, it really doesn't matter. You just want to talk to your customer. And Kevin Kelly put out a famous, I think, 2007 post, which is 1,000 true fans. We're all trying to find our fans. which is our customers. And then we need to serve them. And that's where it gets rather fun and exciting. So
exactly. That's exactly right.
So to sum it up, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, what's the top 2 or 3 tips in terms of someone who's going to launch a new product or wants to sell a product? You can choose whichever you like. So using your strategy, what you've learned along the way since in the last 20 plus years, what are the top tips to succeed at using advertising to get new customers? What are the top tips?
Okay, so number 1, no matter whether this is a new brand or if this is an existing brand, get to know your customer better. Get to know who they are, and then get to know them a little bit more. And the targeting data that you have, know that it's okay to use that and be able to do it, but you got to get to know them and combine the first and the third party data together. Use tools that are out there to be able to do that, but get to know your customer very well. Get to know them at that level of what are their habits, what do they do outside of just buying your product. Get to know them. Then the next thing is build a plan around that customer. Build a plan of what you're looking at and who that is. Don't be afraid to try something new. It's okay to venture out into something different. It's okay to venture out where your customer is. Remember, you may not be your target audience. And that's a key thing. You want to venture to where your target audience is, not where you are, where your target audience is. And then number 3, as you're building this plan, have the correct KPIs of what you want to have your goal after that, so that you have this 3-step plan of if you're following it. And I go, okay, this is what I want. Do I want impressions or do I want clicks and sales? Identify that at the very, very beginning. And as you go through this process, you'll be able to see, okay, that's why most ad campaigns they can fail, because they don't clearly identify what their KPIs are at the very beginning. Identify that at the beginning. So get to know your audience, build your plan around your audience, not you, and then identify those KPIs right at the very beginning.
Right. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. I try to help. And you know what? Be helpful. That's the thing. In today's world, it is okay to just be helpful to people.
Yep. So there's 3 tips.
Yep.
Okay. And which are very executable, which is what we're trying to look for.
Yes.
So, Mary Ann, thank you very much for coming on the Jeff Willis Show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. It was a blast.
It was fun. And I hope you get home safely. If I hear about someone died in a storm and was turned up frozen, and
I'll be good.
Yeah, no, you'll make it.
Or a hardy woman, I'll make it through. I'll be okay.
Exactly.
I'm a fighter.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you're from New Jersey, is that correct? So
I'm originally from New Jersey. Yes.
There you go. Right. I've heard they're a tough breed.
Yes, we are. You can take the girl out of New Jersey, but you can't take the New Jersey out of the girl. That's for sure.
and I can hear, I can detect the accent as well, which is really awesome.
It's there.
So, yeah,
it is there.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Ariane. It's been an absolute honor to have you on the show. I always learn something from incredible people that I talked to around the world, and you're one of those that reveals their expertise and shared it openly and honestly with our listeners and viewers. And I've learned a lot today. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me.